My friends, welcome. How are you doing? And from which part of the world are you joining us today? In this video, we will explore the forbidden knowledge of death and rebirth. What if death is not an end at all, but a carefully veiled transition? Did you know that at the moment of conception, scientists record a burst of light, while at the instant of death, the body loses its final spark of energy? Ancient wisdom and modern discoveries converge in one revelation. We are beings of light, and rebirth may not be a myth, but a universal law. Allow me to begin this journey from the very source. From the earliest times, humanity has consistently asked the same question: what truly happens after the heart ceases and breath leaves the body? In different corners of the earth, people created myths and symbols in an attempt to explain what escaped the surface of ordinary perception. Death frightened and fascinated simultaneously, for within its silence hid not only the threat of disappearance, but also the promise of another realm. Every culture left behind symbols that suggested some form of immortality of the soul. In the bustling cities of Mesopotamia, sages carved onto clay tablets stories of journeys leading through the gates of another world. Egyptian priests claimed that in the moment of death, the soul would face judgment, weighed carefully on the scales of truth. In the Tibetan mountains, monks preserved sacred texts describing consciousness crossing through rivers of light and sound. Indian teachings described death as a temporary release from the prison of the body and a continuation of the vast cycle of rebirth. Despite the differences in language and form, all traditions were united by one belief: death was never considered to be the final end. The philosophers of antiquity treated the question of the soul's immortality as a matter of profound reflection. Plato insisted that the soul was a spark of eternity, temporarily confined within the body. The Stoics taught that death was a return to the universal harmony of existence. Later, the mystics of the Middle Ages discovered within death a purification and a passage into a higher state of being. Each of these perspectives expanded human thought, reminding people that they belonged not only to the earth, but also to the stars. Even the modern individual, despite remarkable technological progress, faces the same eternal question: what awaits beyond the final breath? And although science attempts to provide rational explanations, deep within the human heart, there remains a longing for certainty that life continues. The eternal question of death and immortality remains a bridge linking the civilizations of the past with our own present. For thousands of years, humanity has sought to transmit forbidden knowledge through symbols understood only by the initiated. Where words were too direct, images were created to preserve the mystery and point toward hidden truths. Symbols became bridges between the visible and invisible, between earthly experience and transcendent reality. In ancient Egypt, the ankh appeared as a key to secret gates. Its shape combined the circle of eternity with a cross uniting the celestial and the terrestrial. Priests taught that this sign unlocked the realm where the soul could continue its radiance. Carved into temple walls, it was passed down as a mark of immortality. The Gnostic writings spoke of losing the luminous body when the soul descended into flesh. For them, the true goal was a return to the lost spark of light. Their symbols pointed to the upward path, a delicate, unseen bridge back to the radiant source. In the Indian scriptures, there was the teaching of prana, the flow of breath linking body and spirit. Images of the serpent and lotus expressed the rising force of life ascending through the body. This symbolism carried the idea that as long as breath continued, the light of the soul remained within its vessel. The Celts carved spirals and runes, representing eternal return. They believed every death marked only another turn of the path, with life itself unfolding as a continuous cycle. Their designs reminded seekers that everything returns to its origin and nothing disappears without trace. All traditions, however different in form, converged on a single truth. The soul is light, which can be lost, preserved, or multiplied. Symbols were not mere ornaments or secret signs of power, but maps for those courageous enough to seek deeper. Their meaning was hidden from the uninitiated, yet revealed to anyone willing to see with the heart. Today, when we observe ancient patterns and carvings, we begin to recognize in them more than artifacts. They appear almost like messages left for us, reminders that humanity always sensed death, not as an ending, but as a passage into another brilliance. Modern science has revealed a dimension that the ancients could only describe through images of radiant light. Physicists call it the fourth state of matter, plasma. Unlike the solid, liquid, and gaseous states, plasma possesses a special nature. It not only responds to electric fields, but also displays unexpected qualities that resemble the breath of a living organism. Scientists affirm that 99% of the universe is composed of plasma. Stars, lightning, and celestial auroras are all manifestations of it. Yet the most astonishing aspect is plasma's ability to self-organize. It creates structures that strikingly resemble cosmic galaxies as well as biological tissues. In its patterns, one can see the very same forms present within the human body. When researchers observed plasma within laboratories, they encountered phenomena suggesting that matter itself carried a kind of memory. Plasma responded to stimuli, producing new formations and preserving them over time. This behavior resembled the functioning of the nervous system. From such observations, a profound hypothesis arose. Could plasma be the very essence humanity has long called the soul? Certain experiments demonstrated that plasma could form spiral shapes resembling DNA. These results gave birth to daring speculations. Perhaps life itself emerged from the fiery substance first discovered among the stars. If plasma is indeed the foundation of the cosmos, then the soul may be nothing less than a spark of this primordial element. Contemporary scholars sometimes use the phrase living light. This expression narrows the distance between scientific terminology and the ancient descriptions of a fiery energy of spirit. When we hear of plasma, it feels like confirmation of the symbols used by priests and mystics millennia ago. Their stream of shining fire turns out not to be a myth, but an observable phenomenon within cosmic physics. Thus, a new bridge is formed between knowledge and mystery. Science increasingly touches what was once considered solely the realm of metaphysics. Plasma appears as a universal language of the universe, linking galaxies and human hearts. And perhaps it serves as the key to understanding the immortal essence of light, the very energy we call the soul. When science and mysticism meet, a space emerges where words begin to sound alike despite differences in tradition. In recent decades, experiments with plasma have revealed astonishing patterns. This fiery substance formed designs resembling galactic spirals, coral branches, and cellular networks. Observers noted that these shapes unfolded with such harmony, it seemed as if matter itself carried an inherent blueprint. Physicists attempted to describe these phenomena through equations, yet behind strict formulas appeared the image of living light. It seemed to follow laws, yet at the same time, it slipped beyond complete control. Such behavior echoed ancient depictions of the breath of the world or the shining ether. Mystical texts once dismissed as metaphors began to appear as encrypted observations. When priests spoke of a living spark, they may have been describing what modern instruments now register as plasma discharges. When mystics described fiery whirlwinds of consciousness, they foreshadowed the very images researchers currently observe within laboratories. The meeting of science and mysticism created a new perspective. Ancient wisdom and modern equations did not contradict, but rather complemented each other as pieces of one puzzle. This bridge dissolves the illusion of separation between the spiritual and the material. the world begins to be perceived as a unified stream, where energy manifests both as a law of physics and as a metaphor for inner light. Humanity appears as the mediator capable of perceiving both aspects of reality. From such comparisons arises a profound reverence for the heritage of the past. The ancients perceived signs and conveyed them through images, while modern scientists employ instruments and theories. Yet the outcome is the same: the acknowledgement that light is not merely a physical concept, but the universal language of existence. Thus, we stand before a threshold where the mystical and the physical cease to be adversaries. They appear as reflections of the same source, reminding us that the soul and the cosmos share one and the same nature. Within every beginning of life lies a mystery spoken of by both ancient sages and modern researchers. When the sperm unites with the egg, at that instant a burst of light appears. Scientists describe it as a biochemical reaction involving a release of zinc, yet the symbolism of the event resonates far deeper than a technical explanation. The spark of light seems to affirm the ancient belief that the soul enters the body at conception. For millennia, diverse cultures used images of fire and radiance to depict the start of life. In Indian texts, there was mention of a shining drop descending from the heavens. In Christian mysticism, one finds the image of the light of conception illuminating the soul's arrival. In Taoist tradition, birth was associated with the breath of light, uniting masculine and feminine principles. All these visions echo with surprising clarity the discoveries of modern biology. Today, science with microscopes and sensitive instruments records what once belonged only to myth. The flash at conception does not last long, yet it leaves a trace, like a cosmic sign marking the beginning of a path. It is not merely a chemical process, but also a symbolic gesture of the universe, reminding us that life always begins with light. If the creation of a physical body is accompanied by radiance, it stands as a confirmation of a universal law. Light opens and closes the cycle of existence. It greets us at conception and fades at the final breath. Thus appears a hidden symmetry long described by ancient texts. Here two languages converge, the language of mysticism and the language of science. Some call it the arrival of the soul, others a cellular reaction, yet both acknowledge its uniqueness. Life's beginning in light becomes a reminder that human existence is bound to eternal radiance. When the final moment arrives, the world seems to pause, and breath turns into the whisper of eternity. For centuries, people noticed that death was marked not only by physical stillness, but also by a fading radiance surrounding the body. In the early 20th century, researchers recorded a mysterious loss of weight at the instant of passing, as though something unseen departed. Later, evidence emerged about biophotons, the subtle light of cells that fades once breathing finally ceases. This light cannot be seen with ordinary eyes, yet sensitive instruments detect its disappearance. Scientists describe biophotons as quantum particles emitted by living organisms. They create a shimmering field that preserves harmony within cells. When that field vanishes, the body loses its inner music. Mystics interpret this dimming as the soul leaving its vessel, moving away from the form it temporarily inhabited. Death therefore appears not as destruction, but as the gentle extinguishing of a flame. Fire does not vanish. It simply ceases to burn in its old hearth. Ancient imagery reinforces this idea. Egyptians portrayed the soul as a radiant bird departing the body. Indian scriptures spoke of energy flowing away as light, and Tibetan teachings described death as consciousness crossing into other realms. All of these visions converge into one shared experience. Departure always follows the fading of light. Modern observations suggest that we are beings of light, not only metaphorically, but quite literally. The flash at conception and the dimming at death form a closed circle, reminding us of an eternal law. Light both opens and concludes our time here, and between those two moments stretches the path of experience. Thus, the last breath should not be seen as final darkness. It is the instant when the lamp extinguishes, while its flame continues in invisible space. Listening closely, one may sense within that dimming not an ending, but the beginning of another radiance. Everything in the universe leaves a trace, and energy never disappears without remainder. Modern studies of plasma have revealed a remarkable property. It can store and transmit information. Within its structures arise forms that resemble neural connections. Scientists observed plasma responding to stimuli and preserving the created patterns. This ability led to speculation about the possibility of energetic memory. If matter can retain images, then consciousness itself might continue beyond the body. We are accustomed to thinking of memory as a function of the brain, yet perhaps it is only a reflection of a deeper force. When plasma creates stable structures, it seems to demonstrate the ability to preserve meaning and experience. This opens a space for the thought that personal memories may exist as energetic imprints. Some researchers suggest that what are called past life memories could be linked to this phenomenon. People occasionally describe experiences that cannot be explained by their own history. From the perspective of energetic memory, such visions can be understood as contact with an informational field where the story of the soul is preserved. In this way, reincarnation ceases to be solely a mystical image and gains a new explanation within the language of science. Religious and philosophical traditions have long spoken of the eternal memory of spirit. In Indian teachings, there was the notion of akshi, preserving the record of every action. In Western mysticism, one finds the idea of chronicles of light, reflecting the destinies of all humanity. Modern discoveries do not deny these images, but rather translate them into another dimension, revealing the possibility of a universal library of energy. The thought that memory is not confined to the brain transforms our perception of existence itself. It shows that the human being is not only a physical body, but also a participant in a greater energetic flow. If consciousness can leave traces within the plasma field, then the soul continues even when the body concludes. This perspective unites ancient myths with modern experiments. It reminds us that every experience is valuable and nothing ever disappears. Everything we live becomes woven into the fabric of the universe, destined one day to appear again in a new radiance. Stories of spirits and shadows have accompanied humanity since the earliest times. People described luminous silhouettes, translucent forms, and misty figures appearing in places where someone had recently died. For some, these were superstitions. For others, they were evidence that existence continues beyond the body. Today, when viewed through the lens of plasma science, these accounts take on new meaning. Research has shown that plasma can form glowing clusters that preserve shape and respond to their surroundings. Such manifestations resemble the descriptions of fireballs or radiant shadows reported by witnesses of unusual events. Perhaps what people once called ghosts may actually be energetic remnants of consciousness held within the field of the world. These forms have no flesh, yet they carry the imprint of presence. Myths from many cultures echo this perspective. In China, legends spoke of shining spirits that accompanied families. Among the Slavs, there were tales of house guardians appearing as radiant beings in the silence of night. In Japan, stories told of onryo, restless souls manifesting as glowing figures. All of these images converge on the idea that the soul does not vanish, but continues in an altered form. Modern observations add further detail. Biophotons emitted by cells can sometimes linger in space, creating faint traces of radiance. In locations where people had died, researchers recorded anomalous electromagnetic fields. Such phenomena are difficult to explain rationally, yet they invite the possibility that death is not disappearance, but a shift into another state of energy. Encounters with these manifestations evoke both fear and reverence. We sense that the world is filled with unseen presences, reminding us that consciousness is not confined to the body. Perhaps these are only faint echoes of the soul, left behind after the transition. Thus, the stories of shadows and radiant forms can be regarded not merely as myths, but as reflections of an energetic reality. The soul remains within the field of the world like a quiet glow, demonstrating that being does not end, but simply changes its form. If plasma forms the foundation of the universe, then every living being is connected to others through an invisible web of light. This sense of unity long belonged only to mystics, yet modern research has begun to confirm its reality. Scientists have discovered that plasma fields can interact across great distances, producing effects resembling coordinated behavior. Such interaction is like an unseen web linking individual consciousness into a single stream. In philosophical and spiritual traditions, this concept has existed for ages. Indian teachings spoke of a collective prana, binding together the breath of all beings. Gnostic writings claimed that each soul reflected the greater light, like a drop within the ocean. In the 20th century, thinkers compared humanity to a global brain, with each individual as a neuron and the entire planet as a single organism. Modern experiments observing the behavior of large groups suggest that emotions and thoughts can spread like waves. Joy and fear move faster than conscious recognition. This phenomenon resonates with the discoveries of physicists who note plasma responding instantly to changes in its field. One may suppose that human consciousness is similarly connected through a shared energetic layer. The idea of a collective mind inspires, but also carries responsibility. If every thought leaves a trace in the common field, then the inner state of an individual influences the destiny of an entire civilization. Our actions and emotions become part of the collective stream, shaping the fate of the world. This understanding reminds us that spiritual growth is not merely a private matter, but a contribution to the harmony of the whole planet. Thus, the collective mind emerges not only as a philosophical symbol, but also as a possible scientific reality. We are joined in a network of light and information that encompasses not only humanity, but the entire natural world. Every star, every breath, and every action resonates within the rhythm of the cosmos. The collective mind is not an abstraction, but a mirror, reflecting us as parts of one universal field. And perhaps the recognition of this connection will guide humanity toward a new stage of existence. We stand at the threshold where science and spirituality cease to be adversaries and begin to speak the same language. Everything revealed by ancient mystics and confirmed by modern research converges into a single vision. The soul is no longer an abstract idea, but energy of light, moving through different forms and states. Death appears not as an ending, but as a passage into another level of being. The forbidden knowledge, once hidden for centuries in texts, symbols, and parables, gradually becomes accessible to anyone willing to listen more deeply. Egyptian images of the ankh, Indian teachings about prana, Tibetan instructions on the transition of consciousness, and physicists' discoveries about plasma all unite in one declaration: light is the essence of humanity. And this light does not disappear, it only changes form, continuing its infinite cycle. Today, humanity faces a challenge. Are we ready to recognize that life and death are not opposites, but two parts of the same breath? If so, our very perception of existence transforms. We will cease fearing the final moment, realizing that ahead lies not emptiness, but a new form of experience. This perspective could reshape not only individual destinies, but entire civilizations, for fear of death has always been the root of conflict and illusion. The burst of light at conception and the dimming radiance at the final breath form a closed arc, Within it lies the fundamental law. Nothing disappears. Everything returns to its origin. The sages knew this truth, and now science begins to affirm it as well. A human being is not merely a body, but a flame ignited by eternal energy. Forbidden knowledge does not destroy religions or philosophies. It invites us to look deeper. It reminds us that every life is precious, every action leaves a trace, and every thought becomes part of the shared light. We exist not in isolation, but within a single field where all is connected with all. And when the final instant arrives, one may hear the silence where a beginning hides. Death does not close a door. It opens new gates. Perhaps this realization is the greatest gift, to see within the end the beginning of a path leading into infinity.